A very good day to our speakers, to the honorable adjudicators, to the fellow members of the opposition and members of the floor. Here with you, live and speaking, Micaela Calizon and my partner, Shahana Du.
And most specially, partner, to everyone who is currently joining us for this session on live viewing.
That's right, partner. It's very uplifting to see people being able to witness this remarkable event since what we'll be addressing today isn't simply like any other issue that we often hear and see recently these days in our society. It's not a regular chica or chismis because all of us will hopefully learn something and be enlightened once our session on this very day ends.
I agree with what you said, partner. And not only that, may I also add that this debate is interactive. Therefore, our live audiences are free and are able to ask us questions or address their concerns, their thoughts, and the opinions on what they think about the subject matter during the break later on. So to our live audiences, today is your time to shine and be a marites. Keep on interacting with us on the chat and just let go. Don't hesitate to voice out your insights and your feelings.
Exactly, partner. It's your right to speak up whenever you feel like it, and all of us here believe that no one should be deprived of their freedom to express themselves. Whatever your opinion is, it is indeed valid as long as you're not being disrespectful or insensitive towards other people, especially since nowadays sometimes we're not able to hold back anymore from what we're feeling or thinking that we tend to forget that we're all equally human and people have limitations regarding on how much negativity they can receive and likewise endure. So please be sure to keep our comment section alive, but also clean and comfortable for everyone. We'd also like to add for our viewers' knowledge that we have created an online ranking system on Google Forms for you guys to evaluate our team's performance this afternoon. 10 would be the highest and 1 being the lowest. So after this debate, we'll be posting the link down the comments so you can all have access to it.
Moreover, and speaking of keeping the atmosphere alive, we will be giving prizes to 3 random winners during the break. However, to remain vague and add more thrill, we won't be disclosing what the prize exactly is until later on. So be sure to stay tuned for that, guys. For now, let us move on to the introductions of this debate. Micaela, would you kindly do the honors again, partner?
I'm very honored, partner. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're all gathered here today to talk through a very significant motion that has been a part of our history, but we were never fully able to mull over until this very moment. Whether addressing this would change the perspective of us Filipinos in the affect our solidarity or not, we still believe and respect the opinions of the individuals that have been involved within the matter and to all who are taking part in today's special program. So, to begin the opening remarks, let us all greet her with a warm welcome to reigning heart reacts here in our live stream, Miss Shaina Lazaro.
Thank you to our Master of Ceremony and to everyone here today. Again, good afternoon. And it is my pleasure to welcome you all. Please allow me to start off by introducing the issue at the hand that we will be debating today. And that whether we should recon with Dr. Paciano Laurel as patriot or a traitor of this beloved country. But before everything else, who is Dr. Jose P. Laurel? Firstly, he is known as a lawyer and politician, a jurist who served as the President of the Philippines through the Japanese occupation during the day of the Second World War. However, his reputations began to tremble during his presidency when he had been under indictment of numerous accounts of treasons, 132 to be precise. In July 1946, after an exercise reinforced collaboration and not just any collaborations with the Japanese as means of the survival and to tide over the people of the Philippines to better times. From there, Laurel became the most misunderstood president of our country, in which people claim that his deeds was purely heroic, in hopes of protecting the nation, and for the sake of the people aims dreadful era of the Japanese dominating each and every sectors. Meanwhile, others state otherwise that he actually betrayed the country and was a puppet president of the Japanese government to manipulate the Philippine administration. and this argument or discourse continue to bother the minds and curiosity of every Filipino up to this very day. Hence, we would like to put a period to this matter by pointing out the solid facts that would help to define the true character of Dr. Jose Laurel. Again, we do not intend to misrepresent Ms. Laurel or any of the personalities that are considered involved in the issue, but we are only hoping to, at the very least, clarify the reason why Mr. Laurel should accounted for in either of the two aspects. And that's all, and thank you.
To further give us a wider scope and introduction to help us formulate better judgment in this debate, let us hear from Ms. Alchloe Geducos to provide us with her remarks about the significance of multi-perspectivity.
Looking throughout the debate from different perspectives, Laurel is neither a traitor nor a hero, as both sides prove their points. It shows that the reason why a lot of people think that he is a traitor is because he never retaliated against the Japanese government. He wanted to be the president, hence the reason why he also accepted the collaboration with the Japanese, as it is his political dream to be the leader of our country. And continuing, when the Japanese ordered a war against the United States, he did not refuse the declaration. And lastly, it is really hard to say that he should be considered as a hero, as he never really offered his life to protect the country himself during the war. And now, looking from another perspective, he is a hero for some because even though he may not be the best president during that time, because of the circumstances that we were in the Japanese regime, however, with his good qualities, track record, and the way he carries himself as a president during one of the most difficult times in our history, makes him a good standard for how a public servant should perform. He may have taken advantage of the opportunity given to him by the Japanese to be the president, but he also did that to prevent causing more chaos between Japan and the Philippines. Nonetheless, there is a world of difference between historical revision and historical distortion. Cries not only bring out the best and the worst in people, but they also bring out conflicting perspectives after the crisis has been resolved. Both attempt to assert new historical understandings, often directly contradicting establishing ones. However, the former is done in good faith, with rigor, and on the basis of facts, whereas the latter either denies facts or spins them to benefit a few people at the expense of the rest of the society. Amid current attempts to distort Philippine history, examples like Laurel show that there is a right and ethical way to question and rethink history, especially if led by rigorous experts with years of experience in their respective fields. Still, historians and other truth tellers can only do so much. We as citizens have our parts to play too.
So without further ado, let's have our first speakers from both sides to introduce the members. The people will be completing today's debate because without them, this erudite session won't even be plausible.
For the outstanding members of the affirmative floor, may I call on the first affirmative speaker, Ms. Daichanko, to further introduce the members and their stand in regarding to this debate.
Good afternoon to our audiences and fellow debaters. I am the first speaker of the affirmative side, Aliana Daichanko, and I am here to introduce my fellow associates for this debate, Julian Kalimbayan and Mr. Moin Abdo. And our stand for this discussion is that Dr. Jose P. Laurel should indeed be considered as a president who showed patriotism.
course, a debate won't be a debate without the opposition. Therefore, let us also have the first opposition speaker to introduce the group.
A pleasant day to my fellow debaters and of course the audience. I am Mike Lawrence Gonzalez and I hereby introduce my concomitants for this debate, Mr. Emmanuel Carandang and Ms. Shaina Lazaro. And our stand regarding this matter is that Dr. Jose P. Laurel is to be considered a traitor.
We extend our gratitude to Ms. Doichanco and Mr. Gonzalez for their prompt introductions of their teammates and stands. Moving on behalf of the House, we extend a special welcome to our adjudicators, Ms. Christine Joy Cepillo and Ms. Bea Angelic Balberan. To further discuss how the debate proper will proceed, let's have my partner, Ms. Micaela, to explain.
So our debate proper will last for 30 minutes, with each speaker having 4 to 5 minutes to deliver his or her remarks and 15 to 20 seconds for an official rebuttal. After each debater speaks, the next debater will immediately begin his or her address, and once all speakers have addressed their statements or claims, 3 sets of questions will be given ranging from easy, average, and hard. Each team will have a volunteer per round and will be given 1 minute to answer, followed by another 1 minute to the battle. Are there any questions regarding the rules? If there are none, then let's proceed with the debate proper.
Thank you, partner, for introducing us the committee and for elaborating to our members and viewers the gist of today's debate. Now, we call upon the first affirmative speaker to deliver their resolution, define the terms, and outline the affirmative case, Ms. Aliana.
Thank you to our MC. So, good afternoon, adjudicators, members of the audience, and our esteemed opponents. I will be the first speaker on the affirmative side of this case, and I would like to begin by stating the proposition that we believe Mr. Jose P. Laurel did not betray the Philippines, and he has been wrongly accused of such claims as the accusation of treason. However, before we come to our actual argumentation, let us first define some important terms in this motion. First of all, we believe that the collaboration with the Japanese was forced. Laurel will be the one to take on the authority and occupancy since he did not refuse it. But the key is that it was against his will. Although it seemed that Laurel committed to it freely, if it was for the sake of our country's survival, Laurel chose what would benefit the totality of every citizen above his own. Laurel got an implicit command from the Quezon administration directing him to do everything that was necessary to defend the Filipino people's well-being. He didn't want to let his people suffer much more than they were already, so he concealed them from the agony, the uncertainty of that reality after the loss of so many innocent lives. Despite the risk, he did not leave, but rather served the colonizing government, yet he remained a reasonable move after pursuing an independent stance during the American period of colonialism. So he privately used his privilege of communication with the Japanese authorities as long as it benefited the country.
You thank the first affirmative speaker, Ms. Doichanco, for her remarks, and may I remind the judges that they should not finalize any debaters' points or arrive at an early conclusion until we have heard all the speeches from both sides. For now, we shall hear the first speech from the opposition or negative floor. You have at most 4 minutes to state your claim.
Thank you. I am the first speaker for the opposition, and as my opponent considered that Mr. Jose P. Laurel is a heroic figure who is very genuine and committed to his role or priorities as a former leader of our nation. However, I shall prove this view unjustified. I'm afraid to burst their bubble when they say his collaboration with the Japanese was forced. But during the colonization, Laurel did not take any crucial strategy and willfully colluded with the Japanese for his own personal benefit, which is to have ultimate power or authority as the president of the Philippines. You might think it was for the sake of the country's self-preservation, but it was rather for political domination and control. People believe Laurel to be their defender, But did he oppose the Japanese proposal to wage war on the United States? We assume that was the case, but it wasn't. Rather than establishing the country's defensive system throughout the enraging conflict, he allowed the adversary to manipulate and take the wheel towards his judgment, leading to impulsive and imprudent measures. Furthermore, he was pro-Japanese instead of pro-Filipino. Evidence of this is he appreciated many elements of Japanese culture, including familial serenity and his educational system that emphasizes dedication and long-term service to the state. And if we look into the difference of Laurel's approach to the Japanese and Americans, you will indeed notice that Laurel was more lenient to the Japanese and actually followed through with their orders while he fully admitted his hatred for the Americans. In addition to this, while he conveyed his hatred towards the American, he tried to channel a peace treaty between the Philippine and the Japanese. Moreover, when he was appointed as the president of the Japanese-sponsored Second Republic of the Philippines, he benefited from this position in many ways.
Thank you for those remarks, Mr. Gonzalez. Now we give the floor to the second speaker of the affirmative to disclose more of their case that will support the resolution. You may proceed.
Okay, so to further add to our claims and to likewise correct the argument the opposition has just provided, I would like to say that Mr. Laurel did follow orders from the Japanese, but not everything. When the Japanese wanted to declare war against America, he did not let any Filipinos get involved in the fight during World War II, and he deceived the Japanese in secret and declined their proposed intentions scrupulously. Mr. Laurel also saved other politicians such as Manuel A. Rojas from the Kampitay, or the dangerous troops of the Japanese who are known for executing individuals who rebel against them and their administration. And according to my opponent's statement, Laurel showed more hatred for the Americans than the Japanese, which I completely disagree with, as Laurel only showed leniency to the Japanese as to protect his fellow countrymen who are on the brink of life and death depending on his decisions. So we don't see how any of these actions are selfish and that he merely desired dominance over the country. The opposition also asserted that Mr. Laurel is pro-Japanese and not pro-Filipino. Yet, sources confirmed, and according to renowned historian Teodoro Agnoncillo, Laurel promoted strong nationalism at that time. During his rule, he prohibited the use of any language on government grounds other than Filipino. And Philippine history, also character education, were restricted to Filipino educators alone. Through that, our language was able to flourish more. Additionally, Laurel mandated that the majority of the members of any school boards will be Filipino citizens. Laurel also helped strengthen the Filipinos' economic position. Because food was scarce, he pushed Filipinos to cultivate rice, vegetables, and cereals. The Bigasang Bayan was founded to procure and distribute grains and other crops, and food production was augmented. Laurel fought diligently to minimize our forms of oppression all throughout the Japanese occupation. On top of that, he instructed to have the former presidential guards with weapons that can be considered decrepit to guard the Malacanang and declined the decision to instead put Japanese soldiers. He also showed patriotism during the draft of the 1943 Constitution, which was very influenced by the Americans, which is why the Japanese wanted to change it, but Laurel did not show any sign of giving away. Another part of this is during the revision of their preamble, wherein the Japanese wanted to put subtle credits to their country by adding, "We give thanks to the country of Japan," but was then also rejected by Laurel.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kalimbayan. Moving on to our second speaker for the opposition, you're now free to state your claim.
I would like to refute the claims presented, as it is well known that Jose P. Laurel offered his service to the Japanese and was not forced to take the possession. Rather, he chose them because he would be more powerful and influential on the side of the Japanese government, which would then satisfy his political will. Furthermore, before the war, Laurel is well acquainted with the Japanese and actually had ties with the Japanese officials, which will then make the theory about him being a puppet during the Japanese-sponsored regime plausible. And according to her claims, he saved the other politicians. However, he also failed to do so for Jose Abad Santos, who is known to be patriotic, while he saved Manuel A. Rojas, who also served under the pro-Japanese government and acquired supplies of rice for the Japanese during its scarcity. And according to my opponent, Laurel showed leniency to the Japanese to avoid further harm to his fellow countrymen. However, when Laurel was asked to choose between the independence of the Philippines or joining to attack the Americans, he declined and said that even though the Americans did our country bad, they still equalized it with good feet. This means we can also infer that Laurel actually deprived the Filipino of their independence. Moreover, Laurel also admired the Japanese for how they managed their government, meaning him being a collaborator with Imperial Military Academy even before the war, which will then correlate with how his Japanese culture, which includes their educational system. Later on, he worked with his son and his relationship with the Japanese. Even if you assert that Laurel fought diligently against the Japanese, he also followed them sedulously. On 26 September of 1944, Laurel explained his particular declaration in a radio broadcast after declaring war on the United States and Great Britain, saying, to render every aid and assistance to the Imperial Japanese government, short for conscription of Filipino manhood for active military service, meaning that he fully intended to aid the Japanese with the war he declared.
Let us now proceed to the last speaker of the affirmative lineup. You may now give your refutations and final remarks.
I would like to repudiate the opposition's claims regarding Mr. Laurel's failed attempt to save Jose Abad Santos because it was impossible to convince the Japanese in the first place to let Mr. Santos off the hook due to his patriotic nature. He avoided and completely declined to collaborate with the Japanese, and which resulted in the Japanese not sparing him. Therefore, it was out of Mr. Laurel's hands to have him spared. Same goes for how he saved Manuel A. Rojas. It was also out of his responsibility, yet he did so to protect his fellow countrymen. What's more is that your accusation of Mr. Laurel having relationships with Japanese officials is just a diplomatic courtesy if it was for the means of national argument. He also followed the Japanese sedulously, which I found erroneous. As we previously stated, he was ordered by the Quezon administration to do whatever it takes to protect the welfare of Filipinos, which includes him granting the Japanese more command to avoid more possible disadvantageous outcomes. Furthermore, let us not forget that he only agreed to the position because he knew that if he did not accept it, the Japanese might harm his family and put a Japanese official in his stead, causing more harm to the Filipino people. On top of that, I would like to emphasize that Laurel is relentlessly pressured by the authorities to declare the said war, yet took it as the last resort and still managed to alter his last option by declaring a state of war and not a war, which can be seen as him disavowing instead of it as fealty pledged to the Japanese. What's more is that his son actually worked with him in Malacanang in interceding to have the Filipino prisoners of war released, and actually played a big part in developing a better relationship between the Filipino and Japanese. As for his radio statement, his assertion might have been confusing, but he said that it was short of conscription of Filipino manhood for active military service, meaning he will render aid and assistance to the Japanese government but will not allow the compulsory enlistment of the Filipinos to fight, which then proves our notion that Jose P. Laurel indeed did his best to alter the events to our advantage. With all the claims refuted, I would like then to end this discussion with the following points to be once again mentioned in order to ratify that Dr. Jose P. Laurel is indeed a patriot. First, Mr. Laurel was only following President Manuel L. Quezon's orders. Second, Laurel's relationship with the Japanese is a forced relationship. Third, Laurel did not agree with whatever the Japanese people wanted to do with the Filipinos. Fourth, he took extra measures to alter certain events such as pushing the Filipinos to cultivate rice and more crops, which helped our economic positions to rise. And lastly, fifth, Laurel in fact sacrificed his image to save the Filipino people from what the Japanese could have done more to the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you also, Mr. Abdo, and that will be the last statement from the affirmative side. Let us now head on to the final refutes and remarks of the opposition.
I do like to gainsay once again their claims in regard to the statement that Mr. Laurel's actions in regards to him following the Japanese order were all forced because he knew that he would end up like Jose Abad Santos, who was shot dead after declining to collaborate with them, which therefore means that he could not offer his life to defend our country during the war, disqualified him to be considered as a hero nor a patriot. And according to my opponent's statement, it was all just diplomatic courtesy, which we highly censure because due to that, he introduced his leading Japanese-sponsored government and lived with a roof on his head, food on his plate, and all wrapped by the presidency. His niche while his fellow countrymen continued to suffer due to some of the actions he willingly took under the Japanese orders, which were not even beneficial to Filipino people nor the common good. And according to my opponent's assertion, Laurel is patriotic. However, he did not even show any sign of retaliation when the invasion began. Therefore, supporting our point that he was afraid to even sacrifice his own well-being and preferred to be under the control of another nation in our own country. Once again, according to my opponent, Laurel being acquainted with the Japanese even before the war, when just for democratic courtesy. However, if Laurel already had a diplomatic relations with the Japanese, how come he wasn't even able to stop the said invasion or even just to warn his fellow countrymen? With this, I would like to end the argument by emphasizing the principal point. First, Laurel indeed has a relationship with the Japanese, and second, he willingly cooperated with them. And third, Laurel was appointed by the National Assembly, which at that time was under the influence of the Japanese. And fourth, Laurel benefited with the relationship to the Japanese. And lastly, Laurel aspired to be the president, therefore, him accepting the offer of the Japanese can entirely not be forced, as it also infatuated his political will. This concludes the points we've made through the debate, and thank you.
Wow, what an insightful discourse that we have witnessed, right, partner?
I'm totally with you, partner. I know that we have just witnessed a very intense debate on a very controversial topic, and plus, it really gave me new insights regarding the matter.
I know, right? It definitely gave me a clearer view of how I see Dr. Jose P. Laurel. And I know that it also gave our viewers some enlightenment. But before we read through their comments, let us now proceed to the next part of the program, which contains the questions to be asked. So, this question and answer portion will consist of 3 rounds as mentioned earlier. First is easy, followed by average, and lastly, we have the difficult round.
And to clarify the rules for this portion of the program, again, for the first 2 rounds, we'll be asking you 2 questions and 1 for the final round, wherein whoever gets to raise their hand first, they'll be having to present their answer within 1 minute. And after that, there will be another 30 seconds given for the debate started by the other group to refute, and each group will take turns for 15 seconds to counter-argue until the 2 minutes is consumed. Once the timer is up, both groups are not allowed to add another statement.
To help our audiences understand the mechanics of this round, I shall translate it into Filipino. Ang ating Q&A ay naglalaman ng 3 round. 2 tanong para sa easy at average at 1 tanong sa difficult. Kung sino man ang unang magtaas ng kamay mula sa kanilang dibdib ay may 1 minuto lamang para sumagot. Pagkatapos, magkakaroon tayo ng debattle na kung saan meron lamang 60 seconds upang kumpletuhin ang diskusyon at tag-15 segundo kada talak para sila ay magsagutan. Pagkatapos ng 1 minuto, hindi na maaaring sumagot pa ang sino man sa dalawang panig.
Now that we have addressed the mechanics, let us begin with the easy round. So are the debaters ready? Kindly listen very attentively as I'll only dictate the questions twice. And for our very first question, Jose P. Laurel said that, and I quote, "Truthfulness, honesty, justice, and charity are qualities of a man of character." Do you think that Laurel possessed these aspects and thus make him a man of character? Again, Jose P. Laurel said that, and I quote, "Truthfulness, honesty, justice, and charity are qualities of a man of character." Do you think that Laurel possessed these aspects and thus make him a man of character? Debaters may raise their hands in 3, 2, 1.
Okay?
I agree for what he said, that kinote niya na truthfulness, honesty, justice, and clarity. So sa truthfulness, that it shows na paano niya nasabi na truthfulness, na kung truthfulness siya, kung sa sarili niyang bayan, hindi siya naging tapat. Let it say is na yung, diba dapat sa conclusion kanina, dapat kung tapat ka sa bayan mo, dapat mas pipiliin mo yung bayan mo kaysa dun sa mismong sumakop sa atin. Even they are trying to collaborate with us. So that's my statement.
Thank you so much to the negative side. Now, remember that you have an entire minute to refute each other's arguments twice. 15 seconds per each turn. Are both groups ready? If you both are, then we'll begin with the battle with the affirmative side.
Now let us move on to the second question, still on the easy round. Don't forget to place your hands on top of your chest and wait for the signal. Ready? For a nation like the Philippines to find itself and its souls and to achieve God-given destiny, Jose P. Laurel believed that the country has to develop in itself alone and with little to no help from others as possible. Do you agree or disagree? Again, for a nation like the Philippines to find itself and its souls and to achieve God-given destiny, Jose P. Laurel believed that the country has to develop itself alone and with little to no help from others as possible. Do you agree or disagree?
Mr. Gonzalez, from the negative side again. You have 2 minutes to answer the question according to your stand and your timer starts now.
I completely disagree from that kasi a country needs help from outside force. Katulad ng yung vaccine na lang sa ngayon. Hindi naman tayo ang main distributor ng vaccine. Okay? So, kailangan natin yung tulong nila, yung mabibigay nilang tulong kasi hindi kaya ng Pilipinas i-handle yung sarili nila. Hindi kaya ng Pilipinas mag-develop sa sarili nila. Kaya nga tayo developing country, kailangan natin magpatulong sa iba. Hindi lang to pwede na with little to no help from others as possible kasi it's prideful to think like that. We need outside help. We need help of other countries. Thank you.
So, thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. For the second debattle, The affirmative side will refute first. So, are you ready? Your 15 seconds starts now.
Okay, so with your statement, um, the how Laurel made a, how do you call this? He had this agreement with the Japanese. As what you said, we should ask help from other countries. So with that, we can't really hold it against him that he was associated with the Japanese country, diba?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the affirmative side. And moving on to the next part, let us begin with the average round. So different levels, but it has the same mechanics. And if both groups are ready, I shall ask the next question immediately. For this one specifically, the group who gets to raise their hand first will choose a word from what is given. Those words are words versus deeds, and both groups will defend their stand relatively to the question assigned to them, depending on the statement or question being asked. So let's begin, and the question is, how can one love their country? Again, how can one love their country? You may now raise your hand. Miss Lazaro from the negative side.
I think by showing their good service to Filipino people, siguro hindi lang siya yung dapat hindi dapat papasok sa sarili or sa isip mo na yung self-interest. Dapat ipakita mo sa taong bayan na ito talaga ko yung ikaunlad natin. Parang every problem that the country encounter, dapat may solution or plan for this. I think that's how we can show our love to our country.
Okay, so for the opposite side, please be ready to defend your stand within 30 seconds.
Ms. Daychanko, let's proceed.
You can show love for your country by doing what benefits it, just like what Laurel did. So, based on his actions, people now are accusing him of being a traitor. But what he did was just to benefit the country. So no matter what anyone thinks of you, no matter how it looks like, if it benefits the country, that's what you do if you love it.
So thank you. Are there any person who wants to rebut from Ms. Daychanko's answer? None? Okay, so let's proceed for the fourth question, the difficult round. Before we proceed on it, when Laurel proposed the Rizal Bill of 1956 alongside Claro M. Recto, mandating schools to offer a course focusing on Rizal's life, his workings, and writings. Do you think that Laurel violated freedom of conscience and religion as claimed by the Catholic Church? You have 1 minute to answer the question according to your stand.
So Mr. Karandang from the negative side, you have 1 minute to answer the question accordingly to your stand.
Para sa akin, yung bill na ginawa ni Recto and ni Laurel, ay dinefend lang nila yun. The argue of the objective of the bill kasi is to, para hindi masayang yung mga works and yung memories ni Rizal way back then. So, yung subject na yun mismo yung nagpapa or nagkikeep ng memory ng national hero natin. So, yung religion kasi and the law, matagal na talagang nag-aaway yan kasi merong hindi gusto ang law na gusto ng religion, hindi rin gusto ng religion na gusto ng law. So, hindi natin masasabi talaga na dapat ito yung sundin, ito yung sundin. But the thing is, during the 1955 Senate election, the church also charged recto of being a communist or an anti-Catholic, diba? So way back then, Rizal also being an anti-Catholic also, and after recto's election, the church.
Time's up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Karandang. Once more, let's proceed with the debate. We have 15 seconds for each group's turn to refute until the affirmative's entire time is done. So this time, the affirmative side will begin first, and you may start your rebuttal in 3, 2, 1.
I personally think there's nothing to rebut because I agree with Emmanuel's statement.
Okay, time's up.
No more rebut from the other group. Okay, so let's proceed to the difficult round. For this final stage, we'll only be asking you one question to be answered within the same span of time. But likewise, to our third question, from the average round, we'll be giving you 2 words to choose from to defend. Whoever raises their hand first gets the freedom of choice among the 2 words. So, are we ready? Okay, the words are competent and acclaimed but disloyal to the nation versus unrenowned but compassionate and a pro-Filipino. So the question is, if you were to become the future president of the Filipino people, what kind of leader with what kind of characteristic would you rather have? Okay, so the affirmative side raises his hand first. Mr. Moen, you can now start to defend your stand within 60 seconds. Go.
So I would, if I were to be the future president of the Filipino people, I would rather have the characteristics of being unrenowned but compassionate and pro-Filipino. Because regardless of whoever is going to be president, regardless of their reputation or how, with little people knowing about them, if they're compassionate and pro-Filipino or aiming to help our country become more independent and stand on its own, then it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter of how they're known to the people, as long as they are giving their best and effort for their own country.
The affirmative side has chosen those words. So please be ready, Mr. Gonzalez, to defend your stand within 60 seconds. Go.
Ganito kasi yan. Yung kapag president ka, okay, what I expect from a president is competent and acclaimed kahit disloyal siya. Okay? Kasi kung competent kang leader, ang hinahawakan mo kasi buhay ng mga tao at mga kinabukasan nila. Pwede, makabayan ka nga, pero yung mga choices na law na pinapasa mo, choices mo as a president is not competent enough, and that leads them to their nakakanganib ang buhay nila dahil sa mga choices mo, dahil nga incompetent ka. Wala kang pinatunayan na bakit ka maging leader. That's all.
Thank you so much for a truly remarkable statement, Mr. Gonzalez. And to end this argument, we'll be having our final debate. So debaters, please be mindful of the time, but also keep up with the competitiveness and quick-witted discussions. For the last time, both stands will be having to refute twice, and you have 30 seconds each turn for the whole minute. So this is the debate, and the affirmative side, you may now begin.
So what I have against that statement is competency is great, but without empathy and without putting Filipinos first, then that wouldn't be a great leader. We've had that before. Let's not drop names, but we've had that. A competent president who used his power but didn't do it well. So that's my statement po.
Wow, that was a truly interesting exchange of answers and opinions. I never would have thought that there's so many things that we still need to learn from our history. Right, partner?
I agree, partner. It also made me realize how capable our debaters are and how people can have different opinions on different matters presented. And I know that our audiences are excited to share their thoughts and who they think is more convincing. So let us now head on to our chat box. There you go. Looks like we have a lot of insightful comments to read, partner. To give the adjudicators a time to reach a verdict, let us talk our audience first.
As we said earlier in the program, we will be choosing 3 winners for this portion of the program. Now, we want to ask you guys your opinions or impressions about the very heated debate we just witnessed. And the best 3 point of view will receive 50 pesos GCash.
We know that some of you might think it's not legit, but do not worry. We'll make sure the winners will receive their prizes. Just be sure to stay when the live stream ends so we could reach out to you and let you know that how you'll able to claim your 50 peso GCash. Let's try to find our very first winner. I think I found the first one. So it's a comment from Carmela Garcia. First time to see an online debate sa live stream. Wouldn't doubt mahirap siya i-achieve. So kudos to you guys sa effort nyo. Thank you very much, Miss Carmela. And I agree.
Now, while looking for the next commenter, I saw someone said, magaling rin both sides and clear ng points and nandun yung tension. I just wonder what the decision would be. Another one said, never ko pa narinig yung mga other info about Laurel kaya nakaka-surprise na rin because hindi ko alam na may case pala siya before. Same. Hindi gana nabigyan ng further depth yung character niya if we ever got to discuss him. So thanks na rin for the additional facts. Actually, same din. So thankful din ako na may JPL subject kami here in Lyceum kasi we totally got to Laurel's presidency and live in depth. Thank you so much for the comment pala.
So meron pang isa. Kaway-kaway sa mga hindi pa tapos sa klase this month. Konting kembot na lang mga mi. I agree. 2 weeks to go, guys. Lastly, so excited to see how you guys will perform. Moral support. Thank you. So I think that's all for the comments. Again, to our 3 winners, kindly stay with us after the live stream so we can communicate with you on how you can claim your prizes. But still, a huge thanks to everyone who participated in the comment section and shared their thoughts to us about the ongoing debate. We really appreciated your time and effort in joining us today.
Again, we'd also like to add to our viewers' knowledge that we have created an online ranking system on Google Forms for you guys to evaluate our team's performance this afternoon, with 10 being the highest and 1 as the lowest. So we've already posted the link down the comments so you can have access to all of it. So going back to our main program, it looks like the arbiters have already concluded. But before we hear the results, let us first hear the thoughts and reactions to the arguments that have been presented by the opposite teams through the point of view of our adjudicators. So let's welcome Ms. Apilio and Ms. Balberan.
Good afternoon, everyone. We would first like to thank the partakers for their active participation in this insightful and heated debate. It has been proven to be intense. Both sides have given the other side a piece of their mind about the topic at hand. However, Both sides also committed some fallacies which were apprised and mulled over. Moreover, they gave their best in defending their stance by giving detailed and well-researched accounts of their findings. Both were able to show real understanding and were able to convey their knowledge and understanding in a clear and intelligible way. We also consider the fact that they have the wide knowledge in regards to this topic, as both were able to raise many different points.
I agree with Ms. Cecilia. They have indeed shown their true potential when it comes to critical thinking. As for the questions asked, they have shown a great amount of competitiveness, which made this event more intense in a positive way. However, let us not forget the fact that we are here to judge and give a verdict regarding this matter, so we have considered everything you say from the principal points up to the fallacies that you have committed.
With rational and fair weighing of their statements, we hereby announce the winner of this debate to be
The affirmative side having Dr. Josepi Laurel as a patriot. Congratulations!
Congratulations to our affirmative side for fully defending and convincing the people regarding their stand. We also would like to congratulate the opposition for also doing their best in giving an intense clash of minds over this event.
It has been a very wonderful afternoon for all of us, partner, since we have witnessed a breathtaking win on the affirmative side and have also expanded our knowledge about Dr. Josepi Laurel. So as our event is nearing an end, I would like to call on the floral team member of ours to rightfully do the closing remarks.
To everyone who's currently staying in tune with this debate proper, to our esteemed guests, good afternoon. We have all gathered here today to listen to the brilliant minds as we tackle one of the most controversial presidency in the country. I would like to give plaudits to our debaters who represented their ideologies and pushed themselves in the debate. Furthermore, I would like to thank the people behind this event, as it would not be possible without them. Starting with our researchers, namely Chloe Anshue Ducos, Jamela Lynn Briones, Victoria Ingrid Dizon, William Andre David, and Janelle Alvarado, who presented us with lots of information to mull over and to think about before the event. The scriptwriters, Christine Hernandez and yours truly, who helped in shaping the event up to the end. To the editor, Maria Lei Isip, who creatively gave justice to the posters and layouts that they have made for this grand debate proper, and have also led the live streaming taking place right now. Of course, to our debaters, starting with the affirmative side, Aliana Emily De Chanco, Julian Ray Kalimbayan, and Moin Nabil Abdo. And to our opposition, Shaina Faye Lazaro, Emmanuel Carandang, and Mark Lawrence Gonzalez, who gave their thoughts regarding the banter at hand and provided us with a quality debate. Also to our adjudicators, Christine Joy Cipilio and Bea Angelique Balberan, who gave utmost thought in regards to the recent arguments presented. To our MCs, Micaela Caril Calizon and Shahana Ferndu, who have shown efforts to make this program more lively and smooth sailing. To our professor, Ms. Angelita Damilig, for her hands-on and detailed explanation of what to do and accomplish for this event, and also for her prompt response whenever a question is being asked. And of course, to everyone who took their time to share their thoughts and listen deeply to the event from the beginning up to the end. This is only achieved through the teamwork that we had practiced over the last few days. This may have been a success, but what's more important is the part others have not seen. It is the part where we learn and process new things upon building this entire event. A person without knowledge of their history is like a tree with no roots. That's why our team believes that this debate was necessary to hone not only our critical thinking skills, but also our knowledge about our own history. With the numerous studies that we have read for this debate, I believe we have now debunked Laurel's alleged betrayal. All things considered, Laurel can be labeled as one of the most misunderstood men in the history of the Philippines. You can say that he is a victim of disinformation. Furthermore, this shows how disinformation in the past damages the future knowledge of a historical event. There may be more people in history that might have also been victims of disinformation, either in a positive or negative light. Therefore, it is everyone's responsibility to be more aware and persevering to protect the past knowledge for the future. Once again, we are Group 1 and we hereby extend our gratitude to everyone who attended this perceptive event. Thank you.
Thank you to our teammate who put up together an extremely dramatic closing remark. It has been a long afternoon with with your partner and of course also with our audiences. We hope that this event gave you an eye-opening perception of the matter at hand and also about how important history is.
I agree with you on that, partner. That is indeed an event to be remembered. And now we would like to thank our audience and our professors who are currently watching with us. And as Dr. Josepi Laurel said, the seeds of moral discipline must be nurtured from within, not from without. Once again, I'm Micaela Carril Calizon.
And I'm Shahana Ferndu, presenting you this debate proper, Dr. Jose Paciano Laurel, a patriot or a traitor.